Imagine you are lying in the dark, eyes closed, but the brain doesn't turn off. Your body freezes, but inside, an entire world. We spend a third of our life asleep. But what if sleep is not just rest? What if it is another reality? Today you will learn how much sleep is actually needed, what happens in the brain during sleep, who owls and larks are, and what is hidden behind sleep paralysis. Sleep is not a shutdown. It is an active process. While you sleep, the brain sorts memories, the body recovers, hormones are regulated, and even the immune system strengthens. Without sleep, concentration drops, anxiety appears, and over time, the brain begins to deteriorate. But sleep is not one single thing. It is a complex system. Sleep consists of cycles that repeat every 90 minutes. Light sleep, you are just falling asleep. Muscles relax. Sometimes it feels like you are falling. Deep sleep, the body recovers at maximum level. The heart beats slower. It is very hard to wake you. REM sleep, dream sleep. The eyes move under the eyelids. The brain is active, like during wakefulness. This is where dreams happen. Interesting fact. The body is paralyzed at this moment, so you don't move in your sleep. But sometimes, this mechanism fails. You wake up, but cannot move. You want to scream, but there is no voice. This is sleep paralysis, a state where your brain has already awakened, but the body is still asleep. Normally, during REM sleep, the body is intentionally turned off. This is called muscle atonia. It is needed so you do not move and do not act out your dreams. But sometimes a failure occurs. Consciousness turns on, but the body does not. And you find yourself trapped inside your own body. Why it happens? The most common causes: late falling asleep, irregular schedule, and night awakenings. Stress and anxiety. The brain is overloaded and cannot properly switch between sleep phases. Sleep deprivation, when you sleep too little. The REM phase becomes more aggressive and chaotic. Sleeping on your back. Interesting fact, on the back, sleep paralysis happens more often. The reason is, breathing becomes slightly more difficult, and the brain more often partially awakens. Sleep disorders, sometimes linked to conditions like narcolepsy. But now imagine something else. What if it's the opposite? What if your body starts moving while consciousness is asleep? When you are no longer trapped, but instead fully let go of control. You open your eyes, stand up, walk, but you are not there. This is sleepwalking. Sleepwalking, or somnambulism, is a state where a person is asleep but can move and perform actions as if they are conscious. It happens during deep sleep, when the part of the brain responsible for movement is already active, while consciousness is still off. At that moment, a person may get out of bed, walk around the apartment, open doors, talk, prepare food, and even go outside, all with open eyes but with an empty, absent gaze. The strangest thing is that after waking up, they usually remember nothing. Sleepwalking occurs more often in children, but it can also happen in adults, especially under stress, sleep deprivation, or disrupted sleep schedules. And although it looks mystical, in reality, it is a brain malfunction where body and consciousness become disconnected. A separate and very controversial topic is cases where sleepwalking was used as a defense in crimes. There are known stories where people claimed they committed an assault or even murder while asleep and were not aware of their actions. In some cases, courts actually recognized so-called automatism, a state where a person acts without conscious control. For example, There was a case where a man, while asleep, got into a car, drove several kilometers and killed a relative, and then woke up with no understanding of what happened. The court ruled that he did not control his actions and he was acquitted. But such cases are very rare and always highly controversial because it is difficult to prove whether a person was truly asleep or simply trying to avoid responsibility. Sleepwalking shows something slightly frightening. A person can act, move, and even make complex decisions without being conscious. And this is what makes it so strange and slightly eerie, because sometimes your body can live its own life while you sleep. A common belief that everyone must sleep exactly 8 hours is more of a myth than a universal rule. In reality, sleep needs are highly individual and depend on the body, genetics, age, stress level, and lifestyle. Some people need 6 to 7 hours to feel good and be productive, while others need 9 or even more. What matters more is not the exact number, but how you feel. If you wake up without strong fatigue, have energy during the day, and do not constantly shut down, then your body is getting enough sleep. So instead of blindly following 8 hours, it is better to listen to your own body and adjust your schedule accordingly. But if sleep duration is not so clear-cut, another question arises. Why do some people easily wake up at 6 a.m. and feel great, while others only start to come alive closer to night? The reason is that we all have different biological rhythms, the so-called chronotypes. There are larks, people who naturally wake up early, work best in the first half of the day, and already feel tired in the evening. For them, early mornings are not stress, but normal. And there are owls, those who struggle to get up in the morning, take a long time to wake up, but become highly productive in the evening and at night. Their brain seems to switch into full power when most others are already tired. And the most interesting part? This is not just a habit. It is partly genetic and related to how sleep hormones, especially melatonin, are produced in your body. In owls, it starts being produced later, which makes it harder for them to fall asleep and wake up early. The problem is that the modern world is built more for larks, early jobs, school, schedules, and because of this, owls often live in constant sleep deprivation, even if they technically sleep enough hours. So it is important to understand. It is not only about how much you sleep, but also when you sleep. But even when you fall asleep and the body rests, the brain continues to work. And this is when one of the most mysterious parts of sleep appears: dreams. Why do we see them? There is still no exact answer, but there are several theories. The most common one is that the brain processes information you received during the day: memories, emotions, experiences. Another is that dreams help release the psyche, allowing you to experience fears or situations you could not process in real life. And sometimes it is simply random brain activity trying to turn chaotic signals into a story. Interestingly, not all dreams look the same. Most people see color dreams, but some see them in black and white. Research shows this may be related to how imagination and memory work, and even to what kind of media a person consumes. For example, in the past, when television was black and white, more people reported such dreams. In other words, the brain literally uses the images it is used to. And now the most interesting part: lucid dreams. This is a state where you realize that you are dreaming inside the dream itself. At that moment, you can partially or fully control what happens, change the storyline, fly, create places, or even restart the dream. For some, It feels like a superpower, but there is a downside. Sometimes control is unstable, and the dream can suddenly shift or turn into something disturbing. Lucid dreams occur on the boundary between sleep and wakefulness, when consciousness becomes active, but the body is still asleep. And that is what makes them so strange. You are simultaneously in two realities, and it creates an interesting paradox. While the body lies motionless in darkness, your brain can create entire worlds that feel completely real, and sometimes even more real than reality itself. But to understand how important sleep is, scientists conducted experiments that today sound quite harsh. People were deliberately deprived of sleep. One of the most famous cases is a teenager who did not sleep for 11 days. At first, everything seemed relatively normal: fatigue, irritability, problems with concentration. But after a few days, serious changes began. He could no longer properly remember information, got lost in conversations, and could not focus even on simple things. Then hallucinations appeared. He felt like someone was watching him, objects were moving, and reality started to blur. And this is not an isolated case. Experiments show that after just 24 hours without sleep, a person's reaction becomes similar to alcohol intoxication. After 48 hours, the brain begins to malfunction. Memory lapses, severe anxiety, strange thoughts appear. If sleep deprivation continues longer, full hallucinations, paranoia, and symptoms similar to mental disorders can occur. There are also lesser-known but equally disturbing studies where people were woken up every time they entered deep sleep. As a result, they technically slept but did not recover. After a few days, their mood worsened sharply. Aggression appeared, thinking problems developed, and they felt completely exhausted. These experiments show one important thing: sleep is not just rest that can be postponed. It is a basic need, without which the brain literally begins to lose control over reality. And the scariest part is that the line between normal functioning and complete chaos can disappear much faster than it seems. Sleep is not just rest. It is another reality, a laboratory of the brain, and perhaps something more. Every night you disappear and return. But the question is, what if one day you do not wake up?